Okay, I need to find. And where are you going to be so I can know where to point the camera?
So I've got that station up for you, which I'm gonna ask to pull it in and flip the sides of that right on the
Where I don't understand where he's pointing.
So I'm getting the screen up front. I'm getting a full view of all of us on my laptop.
Okay, but where am I supposed to put it?
On that, and I'm gonna ask them right now to pull it.
Okay, because I. School, and she's actually from Texas, and she goes, oh, okay, her name's Serena, and I became friends with her, and I'm on the close with her, and I know that.
So let me tell you, these are called cuisine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call juices. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. See, I wear men's stuff, and not necessarily size but because like women's are but men's yeah. I do men's too, so that's why when I was like, oh my god, but everyone else who wears men's, this is sort of a wedding shoot with women's stuff, so it looks great. Yeah. You have to, but that's why I was like more stuck out because I mean, oh, you should see my goal. Oh yeah, just whatever the men's of the law frills and stuff. Oh, you got it. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Because if you see me on my website, I wear turbans all the time. I have scarves. I love styles. I intermix Asian and Asian, and I have my whole life. I was made fun of in school because from the time I was a little girl, I figured out when I was in fourth grade was Sears. Sears pinafore. It was pink velvet with purple knee socks, see-through GoPro boots, and a real black leopard beret with a python band. And I wore it to school, and the kids go, and I go, but I'm in large.
I'm wearing freedom.
I've been looking for that. I just want to know where we're sitting. Look. See, I can get the whole thing. Look. Don't sit down so I can see where you're at. What? Oh, where do you want me to? Oh, yeah, the test. This one? Where are you going to sit?
Let's scoot these over a little bit.
Okay, are you going to sit? Okay. Okay, let me. Wait, I can't. What? I need to turn it around. What's going on? It's facing behind me.
Turn it around.
I don't know how to turn it around. I've
Turn
never. Well, I can't see what I'm filming. I've never had to do that before. How do I turn it around? Does anybody do Zoom?
Make it here.
I just don't understand. I've never had it come on. I got to figure out how to turn the screen. Oh, I know what I can do. Oh, never mind. I'll just turn it. Okay. Bobby, I'm trying to get you. There we go. And we're going to put the two chairs right there, so that'll be perfect. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to have you guys sit on those chairs right over there, and we'll pull you forward. Okay. I think we're ready to go. Are you all excited? Hi, everybody. Let me get my.
Hi. Yes, nice to meet you.
We're going to go live soon.
Yeah.
All right. We're just getting the Facebook and Zoom set up. So if everybody wants to pre-purchase their books now, they'll enter into a drawing for a swag thing with Anju, and also a drawing for my rendition of the main character in the book, Rakesh. It's a painting done on glass, and you can either put it on your wall or use it on your coffee table. And then I'm also wearing, I've got a whole line based upon her book because I just love these stories. So, all right. If you get a chance, you know how to. I might have you take some pictures too. This one. Yes. Okay, and if you by any chance lose it and you need to type in the password, if it closes, it's 7. I graduated from high school. 63. Did you get some books? I did. Her book is so beautiful, isn't it? Okay. Oh yeah, that looks good. I can see it perfectly.
Yeah, mine only came and I can't hear you.
Actually, this is the hard
Look at those wheels. I want to know how you did that. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to get some pictures of him because I saw like your brothers dance.
Yeah.
And I go, now we're having this. Today,
Usually a couple
what do you charge?
That's on a gig. It depends on private event or if it's like a club event.
ahead. I'll sit on that chair.
Go ahead. Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy. I'm here at Johns Creek Bookstore in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're about to start a fantastic event on an author, Anju Gattani. So we got a little music. Her son is a music producer and DJ back here. And we've got a wide audience that's here. We're also live on FaceTime. So enjoy the show. We're about to start in just a few minutes. See you. Here's her book, and the launch is Winds of Fire. The first book is Dynasties, the International 2023 International Public Queens and Timber Guys Book Club Selection. They're over there doing live FaceTime. Be right back. We need to get started because my Zoom is going.
Oh, goodness gracious. I've never been on Facebook Live.
Well, you're coming in the middle between us.
Well, I think so. I don't know where else to go.
Come on in.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming. My name is Tina, and I co-own Johns Creek Books and Gifts. You'll soon get to meet my business partner, but I would like to introduce, and if I pronounce names, I won't pronounce your name wrong, so that'll be easy. But Anju Gattani, I did that right, and Kathy L. Murphy, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them with my glasses on. Fiction author Anju, freelance journalist, fiction writing instructor, blogger, former newspaper reporter. Anju was born in India, grew up in British Hong Kong, and was first published at the age of 9. She has also lived and been published in Singapore, India, Australia, and USA in cover stories, fiction, feature, news, interviews, travel, perspective pieces, and more. Anju finally dug her roots in Atlanta, Georgia, USA, with her husband and 2 dashing boys.
Here's
Anybody
one
know
of them. One's right behind me.
Trying to troubleshoot, sorry.
It's okay. When not writing, you'll find Anju on the cross trainer with a book in hand or on the search for the best vegetarian cuisine. If that fails, you'll find her at Kilwins or Haagen-Dazs working out on a double scoop of coffee chocolate chip and chocolate fudge brownie. Reviewed Downton Abbey style saga but set in India by booksbywomen.org and selected as a January 2023 International Book of the Month by the International Pulpwood Queen and Timber Guys Book Club Reading Nation. Dynasty's Book 1 in the Winds of Fire series follows one woman's journey in modern-day India and her struggles against all odds toward justice and self-empowerment. Ooh, I just got louder. Anju is a nominee for the 2023 Georgia Author of the Year Award and hopes her books will bridge cultures and break barriers. Kathy L. Murphy, the International Pulpwood Queen, guest of honor. In January 2000, Kathy L. Murphy launched the grand opening of Beauty and the Book, the only hair salon bookstore in the world. The grand opening was featured on Oxford American Magazine, the magazine of good Southern writing, Oprah Winfrey's Oxygen Network, and the Oprah Winfrey Show. Kathy has been interviewed by Diane Sawyer and Charlie Gibson's Read This Book Club on Good Morning America and featured in the Los Angeles Times, Times Magazine, Newsweek, the Wall Street Journal, and many more renowned publications. After nearly 23 years in business, the International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys Book Club Reading Nation, that is a mouthful, the largest online book club in the world, is 800 plus chapters strong across 20 plus countries. Kathy's first book was optioned for film to DreamWorks, titled The Pulpwood Queen's Tiara Wearing Books Sharing Guide to Life. And I'm going to hand this over to them.
Thank you, Tina.
Not true.
Welcome, everybody. Am I on? Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, I'm Kathy L. Murphy, and I come from Holly Lake Ranch, Texas. And so we've been driving for 2 days to get here for this event. There's nothing I won't do for my authors. We also have joining us our author, Bobby Kornblit, who's an Atlanta native here, and we've known each other for a long time. Her books have been my book club selections, and we have some other special guests tonight Anju's going to talk about. But I wanted to begin with the interview with Anju because this is all because of her and Johns Creek's bookstore, which it's Independent Bookstore Day this weekend. So we're celebrating early because celebrate your independence by buying our authors' books and supporting this kind of bookstore. To imagine that they started this right at the onslaught of COVID and they're still here, well, it's pretty thrilling to know that they made it through. So let's keep supporting it, and perhaps we'll start a chapter of the Pulpwood Queens that will meet here. And if you are interested in that, talk to me. But right now, Anju, we were talking, I got in last night and had dinner in the house, and we were talking about, with her husband and her son, her other son, about how this all came about. And it basically, I heard her on another bookish road trip, I think it was. And she was talking about her book, and it set in India, Downton Abbey. I love Downton Abbey. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to read it. So I contacted her via Facebook, said, send me a book. And the minute I started reading it, I knew it was going to be a book club selection. So long story short, she is our 2023 January pick. So she's going to be voted on for this year for, of the 12 books I picked for International Book of the Year at the end of January 2024. And I fell asleep that night, and I am an artist. I work mostly in painting, but I do sculpture, ceramics, all different mixed media. But I dreamed of Rakesh, who was the character in the book, and it was so vivid, I woke up and painted it. And as you can see, his image is all over these fashions that I designed. I have a whole Rakesh collection, and I did a show in an exhibition in Eastern Shore in Fairhope, Alabama, of my art of my India collection. And every girl there, woman there, wanted something of Rakesh. They said, oh my God, here's this guy. And quite a few of the fellas there wanted it too. So I'm really, it's such an honor and a privilege to be here to introduce you to her, but she's got a story. And she's got a story that isn't just a story about a woman who's written a book. This is a journey, a life journey of 20 years of writing over and over these books. And last night I held in my hand the manuscript. The video's up on my Kathy L. Murphy Facebook page and on Anju's of me seeing her handwritten manuscript that was really thick. And I'm thinking, she wrote 5 books in her lifetime, raising, well, not so small boys anymore. They're all grown up. But I did the same thing. I started, nearly now 25 years ago. I was a book publisher's rep and I lost my job. And so my sister goes, well, go back to doing hair. I've always done hair because that's how I put myself through college. So I said, well, I miss the books. I can't live without reading. And she said, we'll do the bookstore thing too. So I opened January 18th, 2000, the first hair salon bookstore in the country, and the media jumped on it immediately. And so that can be all read in my book, which is up there if you would so want to do so. And it lists all the books up to 2008 of what I've picked so far. My next book, The Pulpwood Queen Goes Back to School, will list from 2008 up to today. But Anju, I am proud to introduce you, and I want you to just tell them, how did this all begin? It's an amazing story.
Do you believe in nonsense? That's how the story began. We moved from Singapore to New Jersey, USA, just after 9/11. Not the right time to come, but here we were. And our boys were 5.5 and about 1.5 that time, tiny. And we were in New Jersey. And my entire journalism career came to an end because I was not able to write for magazines and publications in Singapore, India, and Hong Kong because I was now on the other side of the world. And the audience I was interviewing was not relevant to the magazine's audience who was reading it. So that career ended. I was on a visa which didn't allow me to work. And that's a commonly known H-4 visa, which a lot of immigrants know. So I was with 2 little boys in an apartment in cold weather, transferring Fahrenheit degrees from degrees Celsius, kilograms to pounds and ounces and all that, try to make sense of everything. And wondering what to do with my life. And one day when I had to pick up Vic, you want to say hi to everyone, Vic? There he is. I had to pick him up from the bus stop, and Vishesh, my younger one, had just taken this afternoon nap, and I just took a break because that's what all young moms do. We need to breathe and take a nap. And I saw this, I woke up and I couldn't breathe. And I didn't know what it was, but I had seen an image. It was like a trailer. It was a movie that was what is now the end of book 2. And I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't understand who the characters were. Who are they running away from? Where are they running to? Why are they trying to escape? Why are they putting their lives at risk to escape? There was no answer. So that's where it began, with pure nonsense. And I shook it off. I had enough experience to know that it's not short fiction, because it's different. It's not a nonfiction piece, because this is, somehow it felt real. And I thought maybe it's a Bollywood movie I've seen before, an Indian cinema movie, but it wasn't. And I thought, well, maybe it's something I read before, but it wasn't. And surely enough, called my mom, asked her for help, you know, because she's seen my writing career from when I was 7 and 9. And she said, maybe it's something you need to put down on paper. And that's when my husband did the most surprising thing. And he got me a stack of paper and a pen. And he said, you won't know until you write. So Kathy, I know yesterday you wanted to share something and I asked you not to with the audience, but I have something for you.
Now, she's always doing this to me. You would not believe what she did at my last book club convention. What the heck? Oh my gosh. Okay, let me.
So I've never shared this before. I've never done this before.
What is this? Well, this is a sorry, you know. Okay, you gotta hold this. Oh my gosh, you guys, look at this.
So that's what I did with a stack of paper and pen my husband gave me. I began to write.
Look at this.
And that's only a third. That's only a third of the full first draft. That is the first dirty draft of the manuscript. And I had no idea what I was going to do, where I was going to go. This is back in 2001. So if we carbon date this, it'll go back to 2001.
Can you imagine you guys spending 20 years writing this series? I mean, I have literally picked thousands of books in the years and a lot of them have gone on to a lot of fame. Jeanette Wall's The Glass Castle, you know, Mark Lee's The Canal House, same kind of different as me, by Ronnie Hall. I'm just Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert, The Help by Catherine Stockett. I mean, amazing stories of authors who have gone into even film fame. This would make the most incredible Netflix series. So anybody out there in Netflix world or is hearing this or any streaming service, if you haven't read this book, we will send you a copy. But look at this. It's all handwritten. And I mean, I can't even imagine. I type all my books. I type them up because I'm a big typer, but typist. But look at this. It's pretty amazing.
And
Okay.
there are phone numbers of people who I would meet while I was editing the manuscript at a park or at a location. And that's somebody's phone number who I met. Then there was a woman in a park in Chastain Park who reached out to me when I was editing and said, Anju, she didn't know who I was, but she just asked me what I was doing. And I told her I'm editing a book. She asked me, what are you writing? And I didn't know. I didn't know how to pitch my story. I didn't even know what the story was about. This is after the full draft. I just knew it was a story of a woman in trouble. And that phone number might be here. I don't know. It's
Good Lord.
I was editing
Front
it.
and back.
It's-
Front and back, y'all. And she said this is 1/3?
This is 1/3. There's 2/3 more because this is only up to chapter 16, and I know it ended. The original draft ended at like 30 something. So
Writing is hard, but writers are born to be writers because you dream about it every night. That's what I do. I dreamed last night all about Bollywood and her book, and I just can't wait to see where this is going to go. And I'm so happy that you all are here. We're all on a journey. And I also, it's important to me, people say, where does your book fit in? And I said, we're not going to put her book in a box. It's not a Pan-Asian book. It's not an India book. It's not a women's fiction book. It's a book that everybody should read that fits all genres. And once you read it, you'll understand. So I'm turning back to you. I'm going to set this down.
And so at one point, there was a woman at Chastain Park who reached out to me and asked me what I was doing, what I was writing. And later on then, when she sat down next to me and she said, do you see that man over there with 2 children? I said, yes. And she said, that's my husband. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. And she said, those 2 boys are my kids. I'm like, wonderful. And then she said, do you know that I gave up my job to be a stay-at-home mom? And she just started pouring her story out. And I was like, why? And she explained why. She was a nurse. She worked full-time, and her husband wanted her to take time off just to raise the kids. And I said, well, how do you feel about it? And she said, it's okay, but there's something I'm not sure about. And I'm like, what? So she said, whenever my husband goes to work, he takes the boys to school, he locks me in the house. And that time there were no cell phones, and it was landlines. And she said that he cuts the landline cord, or he just disconnects it. And I said, so what do you do all day? She said, I'm at home. And I said, so what about when you're with family? She said, when I'm with family, he's with me all the time. He does not leave me alone. He makes sure that he listens to everything I say, to everybody I'm talking. And I said, so what about with your children? Who makes the decisions? And she said, I'm not allowed to make decisions for my children. And then I looked at my book and I realized this is what I'm writing. And here was this real woman, and I have her name and her phone number on the first printed draft, which I put on the laptop and printed. And whenever I see it, chills run down my spine because this really happened. And what she said to me was, when is your book going to get published? And I was like, I have no idea. I mean, I'm still in the editing phase, and I don't know how much more edits are left and how much more I have to do. So she said, can you take my phone number down? And when your book comes out, give me a call. I want to read it. And I said, but you don't even know my work. She said, I know you, and I want to read it. And that's a true story. And there are many more true stories like that, which happened in the last 20 plus years.
There's Vina. Hi, Vina. Come in. What is really important, I think you also need to know, is how many, after reading this book, just how many times she submitted this book to the major publishing houses in New York. Now, I'm going to tell you, when I opened my hair salon bookstore, I had a publisher call me and ask me to write the story. How did you get on Good Morning America? How did you do this? How did you get in the Los Angeles Times? And I then had an agent call me and asked me if she could represent me, and she wanted to pitch me in New York. We went to New York during Book Expo, and I pitched it. It went into bidding war, and this was in 2002, I think, yeah, 2002. And the first bid that we got, I took it because I couldn't believe somebody wanted to pay me that much to write my story, and it was $50,000. They don't do that anymore. So I want you to tell them what happened to you with your experience of submitting your book.
I started submission of the manuscript, book one, back in 2003. I didn't know how to pitch, but I was learning as I was going along. And over the course of 2003 to 2000 and just last year, 2022, I've had 4 agents who represented me who could not sell the book to a large house. I think Sonia, you and I were partners in that trying to figure it out phase. And then I also had over 500 rejections from agents and editors who said they did not know what to do with my book or my story or where it belongs. And I got so frustrated, I actually went into a Borders when we had Borders at time. And I said, well, let me put an end to this madness. If there is no space for my book, then I don't need to waste any more time fixing it or rewriting it. So I went into a Borders and I asked the manager, where would my book fit? And I kind of explained the story, pitched it to him. And he said, well, maybe you'd fit on this shelf here. And I'm like, well, I'm not a literary. And he's like, okay, well, what about this shelf here? We must have gone across several shelves. There was no shelf where I fit. And then I looked at the bestsellers list and I'm like, that's not my shelf. I mean, clearly that's, where the big people are. And so I left Borders that day and I said, well, I don't fit on a shelf, so maybe I should just stop this. And I put the book away. I took a copy on a flash drive, a backup, and I just left it at that. And I said, no more of this stupidity. Let's put an end to it. And then that very night, I had a dream. And my male character, leading male, Rakesh Dhanraj, just shows up. I'm sleeping, and there's a phone call, and I pick up the phone, and I know it's Rakesh Dhanraj's voice, though I've never heard him, and I just see his eyes, and he tells me, if you do not write our story, then who will tell our story? Who will tell my story? And then I woke up, I couldn't breathe again, and then I was trying to figure out, was that real? Was that a real phone call? Was it something in my head? Am I now dreaming stupid things, or what's going on? And I understood that this story needs to be told. And there's no one else who can tell it except me. And there was no choice. I mean, there was a choice to put it away, and I tried it, but it didn't work.
And it's quite a story. And the thing about it is, in this world, the criteria is up on my website, www.thepulpitqueen.com. It has to be well written, and it is. And it has to be a story that I've never heard before, but it also has to be a story that is discussable. I mean, you read a lot of, and you go, that was a great book, but there's nothing to really say. But there's a lot to say about the patriarchy, about the way women, no matter where you come from, even here, no matter where you come from in this world, whether you're from, very economically challenged to the wealthiest people, we are letting a lot of our lives being dictated by the male persuasion. And so I wanted, I started the Pulpit Queens with 6 women, and it's grown to literally thousands. And we have guys in our book club that's our big supporters, and timber guys, Vic. So when I read her book, I said, oh, there is so much we need to learn. And the thing about reading other people's stories and sharing it in a conversation like we will here in a few minutes is that we all come from a lot of different backgrounds and experiences in life. I mean, I grew up in a little town in Kansas, you all, but I escaped into books at an early age, and her book is one that, I was just jumping up and down when I got, so when's the third one going to be out? Wait till you read the second one. And we have a lot of excitement about that. But so how did I get your book? How did I get your book?
So I was, like every author out there, trying to get the book out, trying to get visibility, trying to learn at the same time, how do we market a book? What's the right way to do it? What's the wrong way to do it? And I had started participating with a lot of Facebook groups who welcomed the book, who welcomed my background. And I was like, this is great. And then the next thing is I get a message from Denise Bird of Tattered Page Book Club. And she said, there's somebody by the name of Kathy L. Murphy who wants your contact. Can I share it? And I'm like, who is she? And she said, she is the pulpwood queen. And I'm like, what is a pulpwood queen? And she said, you need to start Googling because your life is about to change. And I was shocked. And when I read about Kathy, I was just like, where do we go from here? Because there's this amazing woman who's been running this book club for 23 years, 800 chapters strong across 20 plus countries. And after 500 rejections, 4 agents who couldn't sell the book, finally this one woman comes up and says she wants to talk to me and she's interested in my book. And I'm like, maybe she's looking at the wrong book. I was convinced she's found the wrong book. And I messaged Denise back and I'm like, are you sure it's not somebody else? And she said, no, it's you. She wants your book. And I'm like, well, how do I reach her? She said, here's her contact. And that's how I think we found each other.
And the minute I started reading it, I get about 1,500 books a year. And the authors, the publishers, publicists send them to me. Friends of authors send them to me. And I can tell pretty quickly. In fact, we have 2 other authors now in this room that I knew immediately would be book club, Barbie Cornblatt and Vina Rao. So, I mean, amazing stories. I do not, I read all genres, both men and women, and other gender identities. It doesn't matter to me. A good story is a good story, no matter where it comes from. So she has written a story. And the other thing that touched me when I finally talked to you, was you were telling me about where you grew up and how it was so diverse. And tell a little bit about the background of where you went to school and different things.
So I grew up in Hong Kong, born in India. Mom and dad had their business set up in Hong Kong from a jewelry family, and they continued. Mom went back to India. That's where I was born. And 3 months later, I was in Hong Kong with her. And that's where I grew up for about the good first 20 plus years of my life. British education system. So think of Bend It Like Beckham without the soccer. I cannot play sports. Don't ask me to.
She can dance though.
But I can't play sports. And it was very, very British at school. We had O levels and A levels. And, when we went home, it was very Indian. So it was crossing 2 divides all the time. And our schools had over 36 nationalities, over 36. So we were just one of the many faces, and I was used to living in a rainbow. I was not used to living with just people of my own color and my own skin. I was used to that diversity. And coming home was a very Indian environment, but my parents were very broad-minded. And so, I think we had the best of both worlds is what I will say. And but what I found was I quickly learned to translate myself or, change myself from one medium to another. It just became automatic. My accent changes even now when I'm talking to my kids and my husband versus out here in public. The way I think, also that changes because you just learn to adapt very quickly to different environments. And I think the best word I can describe it is like a chameleon. You just change without knowing it.
And I've always said, don't judge a book by a cover, because read the book. So listen to the story and find out about the person. And once you read the book, go there. I'm going to India. Her mother has invited me to come and stay. She's going to teach me Hindi. Namaste. She's going to teach me Hindi. And they were already started talking to me in it. And I go, listen, Papa Ji, Mama Ji, I can say Farmalinga, Shuka, a few words. I can pick out I'm a big Bollywood fan, Shah Rukh Khan. Okay, that got me started. And I have him in my house because I have a standee of him and I have the 2 book and film clubs. But when I talked to her, she goes, Shah Rukh Khan, oh my gosh, I was inspired by him for the Rakesh character. So tell a little bit about that.
So for a long time, I did not watch Indian movies because they were very mundane. They were boring. This is going back to the 70s and 80s when women had passive roles, submissive roles, and self-sacrifice equated to self-worth and self-value. And that's how you were looked at. If you sacrifice yourself for the greater good, then you were considered worthy. And when I saw those kind of movies and films, I was just like, this is not what I'm seeing in the West. This is not what I'm seeing in UK. And it somehow just kind of filtered down everything that I was reading. And I would look at Hindi films, and before the story was over, just at the start of the story, I would tell my mom, this is what's going to happen. And she's like, you're killing the story, you're ruining it for me. And I'm like, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Well, 9 times out of 10, I was correct. Then I'd watch American films and British films, and the women were more progressive, they were more outspoken, they had more stronger roles of substance than Indian women did. And, as I began to see the differences in storytelling, I think that started affecting the way I thought, the way I felt, and also the way I was translating while I was crossing boundaries between the two worlds in my life. And I started really watching Indian films and paying attention when Shah Rukh Khan came on screen. There was obviously his ability to act stems from his eyes. He's able to talk without talking. He's able to speak without speaking. And that power of communication is just phenomenal. It really is. And I was like, well, this is someone sensible. There's a reason to watch Hindi films. And of course, Indian films have now gone on to a whole different level. They are able to address issues that were unspoken or unheard of before, because it was always brushed under the carpet or it was not talked about. And so I feel now, I see so many people up there, role models I can connect with. And I think that's helped. When you see representation, that's one thing, but when you see someone you can connect with on a higher level, that automatically starts bringing your world and giving you more closure, I think.
Well, after I read the second book, I said, now wait, this character was based on Shah Rukh Khan? She goes, no. And I said, okay, good, because wait till you read the second book. But it's inspired by him, okay? It's not his story. So, but Shah Rukh Khan I've never seen anything like him in my life. I honest to God, I watch films. I have 2 book and film clubs, one with my own book club, and then I have the Pulpit Queen Shah Rukh Khan Friends and Fam Club. And nobody in India knows who the heck I am, but I know when we discuss the film RRR, which you've seen and won the Academy Award for the wonderful song and dance, and the Elephant Whisper won for Best Documentary. India is now in the spotlight, and I often think back to what he said when David Letterman interviewed him. He said, well, what do you think about, America and everything? He goes, well, we used to, we always thought we send our children abroad to go to school because the education and all the things that they get, and then come back and take the best and work with us. And he goes, and someday you might even have an Indian president. And I swear to God, just the other day, I saw on the news that there is an Indian man who went to Harvard who was born here, but his parents were from India, is running for the Republican candidate party. I go, oh my gosh, I think I'm on a trend. But I'm telling you, this book is going to bring so much social change because it's going to bring conversation. And no matter where you are in the world, we need to all be treated fairly and respectfully, and you do it in such a way, it's not like a lesson, it's like awareness. Most people in the United States have no idea the difference between India and Pakistan, or northern, the high desert or the Himalaya part of India, or South India. And there's over 565 dialects in India, the Telugu, the Tamil. And there's not only Bollywood, there's Pollywood, there's Sandalwood. They've got all these different, and I'm learning about it. And the more I learn, the more I want to go, the more I want to talk to people. So that RRR show brought 7,000 people onto my Pulpit Queen channel of watching it and then responding. So 70% of my Pulpit Queen channel is now supported by Indians. The next is United States, and third is UK. Why UK? The Indians in the UK, they are just watching everything I'm doing, and it starts with a pebble in a pond, and it creates these ripples. And we can all, by sharing these stories of Anju and supporting her and this series, hopefully enough of you will review the book, tweet the book, Instagram, and let's get this word out here that this is an important book. So I know we have other authors here. So Anju, what is really important for you to share with the audience today?
So I was asked this question just 2 months ago in January, in terms of what is my definition of success in my journey. And I would like to say that my definition of success is if there is a man or woman out there who finds this book, reads it, and can stop and put an end to the toxicity in the life they are living now, and say that your book helped me see that there is another path ahead, that I can live outside this box, this mental box that is drilled by society and conditioned for us, and break free, then I think the 20 years that I put in and over 30 rewrites in writing this book alone, over 30, it's been worth it. Because then the life that I have been given has been used to save another life or bring that life to fruition. And I think Aparna, who is the executive director of Raksha, she does this on an everyday basis. And I would just like to talk a little bit and introduce, because what she does is phenomenal. She does this on an everyday basis. And we have two women here. So Aparna is the executive director of Raksha, a nonprofit organization in Atlanta, Georgia, that protects and empowers victims of domestic violence and abuse. Aparna has volunteered and steered this committee since its inception in 1995. She serves as a member of the Georgia Advisory Committee for the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, board vice president for Tapestry Incorporated, and also to end violence against immigrant women, and a board of the DeKalb County Domestic Violence Task Force. Aparna has received numerous awards. There's a whole list here. And I'm just going to read it out because it's phenomenal what she does. The Director's Eagle Award for Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, a White House Champion of Change in 2013. Aparna was at the White House recently. She's named a Georgian Asian Times 2013 Top 20 Influential Asian Committee Leader. She's recognized by the Georgia State University Distinguished Alumni Service, by the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology. She's recognized by the Jeanette Rankin Foundation as Smart Women Honoree, and for the Hope of Tomorrow by the International Women's House. And in 2019, Aparna was recognized by Shakti Strength Award. It's just incredible, and I would really like Aparna to say something about the whole topic of domestic violence, abuse, and emotional abuse, which is so crucial and at the heart of the Winds of Fire series.
Wow. I think we're at the end of Women's History Month, or Her Stories Month, and so I think the importance of telling women's, I'm gonna get emotional, stories is so critical. And I know Pooja just did an amazing article on domestic violence and its impact on children in Cover Magazine. So it's important that we continue to tell individual stories, not just the happy ones, but the ones of struggle and overcoming and resilience are so important. So, I don't know why I'm getting so emotional.
Because you're passionate.
You're passionate.
You're passionate.
I know, but we talk about this every day. But I think I'm sitting in a room full of amazing authors and amazing individuals with powerful stories themselves. So I think being in that room is really powerful. But I think it's important to tell stories, because I think when we talk about domestic violence, and in my experience of doing the work, people don't want to hear about it on a daily basis, right? It's intense. It's hard. It's hard to live through it. So I think it's heavy, right? So when you have a story that can take you in and that has fiction aspects of it, it's a bit more digestible than dealing with what is real life, if that makes any sense. And that's been my experience. So to tell stories through an art form is a powerful way to get a message across that may not be as triggering and traumatizing when you think about the real life stories and the real life experiences of individuals. So that's why it's so important to have the stories. It's important for folks to be able to relate, to know they're not alone, because I think in a world, in a time where we have social media, which is wonderful in many ways, we see curated stories and curated lives, and we're not seeing the real life struggles that people face on a day-to-day basis. And so I think it's important for us to have the stories of the not so perfect, not so easy lives, so that we can relate, not feel alone, and know that it's an important struggle. If, in talking about domestic violence, I think it's important that we don't see it. It happens more often. It could be our neighbors, our family members. It is more prevalent than we want to believe, right? And to also talk about the emotional abuse, right? I think sometimes we don't see the emotional impact and how long that stays with us and how long it takes for that to heal. But that is just as serious as the physical aspects of violence. So I think it's important for us to learn more, to get active, to make a difference in our own families. You don't have to have a title, you don't have to volunteer for an organization. Part of what you do is just remind people of their own power and to show up for folks and be a supportive voice. And I think those are important things that we should be doing in the community. Then we don't have to have organizations like mine. Our dream is to shut down at some point, but the reality is for us to change our culture and have cultures of care and cultures of consent as opposed to cultures of violence.
So Aparna, one of the things I wanted to share with you was in the research for the Winds of Fire series, ongoing, I've worked with psychiatrists, psychologists, medical doctor. I have a medical doctor, my younger sister, she's an advisor for the entire series. But, one thing she said was, and Dr. Singh, Dr. Rajendra Singh, I went up to him and asked him questions about, abuse and emotional abuse and PTSD. And Dr. Singh said, Anju, this is the point where medical stops and behavioral begins. And I said, but you're a medical doctor. And I worked for him, and he is the best employer in the world. He's amazing. And I said, Dr. Singh, I want answers. PTSD, and how does it affect somebody on a physical level? And he said, Anju, he said, this is now getting into completely psychological, behavioral, the side of, people's lives. And that's where the medicine side of it cannot help. Even though as a doctor we prescribe medication, but it's a different treatment. It's a different pattern of behavior. I read this book called 101 Verbal Abusers Speak Out by Patricia Evans. And that was one of the most difficult stories, book to read, because it's a story of 100 women who have undergone emotional abuse, anywhere from the span of 9 to 10 years, all the way to 25 to 30 years. All these American women were American, not Indian, not Asian. And that's when it hit me that what I was writing was not specific to Asia.
Right, absolutely.
And I was shocked at what I had, the manuscript I just pulled out and showed all of you, I was shocked at what I had done and addressed. And I was like, so where is the beginning and where is the end to all this?
Oh, wow.
That's deep.
Yeah, if I had that answer, we would, we would not be here, and my organization wouldn't be here. I mean, if you ask me at the deeper level, I want to say that hurt people. So there's cycles of violence that continue and go on, and how do we end those cycles of violence? So that's why I always tend to say creating cultures of care, cultures of consent, right? Because we have cultures of violence across all of our cultures, right? And part of my work is, of course, doing cultural competency trainings, being able to show the interconnections, because people will say, oh, it's part of your culture. I'm like, it's part of all of our cultures, right? We have a Violence Against Women Act. We have shelters. We have lots of money that's poured in the United States into addressing domestic sexual violence, right? So I think the important thing is to know it's a part of all of our cultures. And when do we start learning to, show respect to everyone, right? Not have to hurt other individuals to feel powerful. Where do we learn to deal with our own pain, right? And be okay with it, not have to mask it up and try to be something more. Because a lot of times when we're acting bad, it's because we're in pain or we don't have the words to verbalize what we're feeling, dropping into feelings, right? Really talking about feelings and being okay with feelings is such an important thing that we need to be able to do as a community, and to provide easy access to healing, right? It's to get therapy costs money, to get therapy, and to find the right therapy, you have to have resources. It should be something that's provided to us in our schools every day. we're fighting over what we can and can't do in schools as opposed to what are we providing to help people be centered, to help people deal with conflict, to help people communicate effectively. We're not doing any of that, right? We're doing a lot more fear mongering and fear tactics right now, if you ask me, as opposed to really creating safe spaces and ways to be authentic with each other.
So I just wanted to ask you, Aparna, for our audience here and on the Facebook and Zoom live stream, if you know of anybody, if you hear of anybody, or if somebody themselves is not in a good situation, in a toxic situation, what is the best thing they can do to move forward?
Wow. Trust your own gut because you're the expert of your own experience, because I think that's important. I think it's easy for us as community to say, leave, go do this, just get a job, and the reality is that person is living their own experience. They know their own safety, right? And I think also they know their own danger. And the thing to remember is that if you're in a domestic violence situation, it is actually more dangerous when one leaves than when one is in the relationship, because again, it's about power and control, right? And the individual who is using power and control over another individual, and they realize they no longer have power and control, that's when they go to the most drastic means to regain it. So trust the instinct of the individual who lives in that household and trust their instincts. If when they're ready for help, they will reach out. I think giving ultimatums and saying, oh, well, I helped you this time and I'm so frustrated. Well, it takes 6 or 7 times for someone to leave, if not more, because they've got to make a decision when they're ready. And it's, you talked about the emotional abuse, right? And so it takes time to build up your esteem. If you hear or insulted every day, right, for X many years, you begin to believe that. So the ways that we can uplift each other and remind each other of our power. Some of the subtle stories is like coworkers telling another person that you can do anything that you want to do, and reminding them their own power is a great way that we help lift up people if we can't solve their housing and big decisions. But how do we continue to remind people of their beauty, their power, and their ability to make their own decisions in the time that's right for them?
Thank you, Aparna. An applause, please. I think this is. And Aparna, I will ask you to talk again.
Okay.
And I also wanted to bring up Pooja Garg. She is the head of the organization for the Woman Inc. and also for Cover Magazine. She's a city editor. And Pooja Garg is an award-winning journalist, author, and poet. She's the author of Every Day and Some Other Days. Pooja is the founder, chief editor of The Woman Inc., a nonprofit magazine that advocates and supports immigrant women. She's also the city editor of Cover Magazine and a fellow with the University of South California's Annenberg School of Journalism for domestic violence impact writing and community storytelling. Pooja is also at work on a fiction and nonfiction book. Thank you, Pooja, for coming.
Thank you, Anju, for having me. I am a writer, not a speaker, and I will try to, but I wanted to be here for Anju. It's an important topic, and being here with Aparna and with everybody means a lot. Aparna was the one who held my hand through this journey that I went through, a relationship like that myself. And in a way, life has come full circle for me when I started my fellowship with USC on domestic violence, impact reporting and storytelling. Over a year, more than a year, in fact, I worked with domestic violence survivors and also their children, and we spoke to a lot of them. And I think throughout that journey, the few things which stood out is what I wanted to share with you. One is that, as Aparna rightly said, that domestic violence is much, much more prevalent than we like to believe. In the research that I did, more than 40% of women in our community go through abuse. This is a worldwide, worldwide statistic, but also much more for us. And the fact that even after we move to US, even after we move to other countries, despite our education, despite all the good work that we hear in the community. Things at home haven't changed for women, and that is, I think, a huge thing which stood out. We still haven't gone past our patriarchal rule book. The second thing, which was very heartbreaking, was that children are affected a lot in this process. As one of the, I was talking to another media uh, organization based in California about my reporting, and they very rightly said that it was they named the topic as collateral damage. And I think that is so true because a lot of times we do not realize that. Even when children are witness to domestic violence, research shows that the kind of trauma they go through is same as soldiers going into war who have been in war. CDC shows that if their life expectancy is reduced by as much as 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so for children it is, but the good news in all of this is that with organizations like Raksha, we have support for women, we have resources, and I'm so glad that Cover Magazine supported me in this in during this fellowship, and of course I had Raksha also who helped me with this process. And the second part is also is that we also can help heal children if we have them at the right, if we are able to hold them at the right stage through love and through compassion and through therapy and the rest of it, we can actually help them heal. And that is the one ray of hope that we have. What Aparna said about perpetuating the cycle of abuse, I think that's where we have an opportunity to actually make a change for children. And whereas, as somebody said, one generation of deeply loving parents can actually break that cycle, and we can look forward to a more, loving and a more abuse-free world. As Aparna said, that we are looking to, we wish we didn't have to work at Raksha. I think just one generation of deeply aware parents can help that. And I'm so grateful to Anju for bringing up this topic to light in her book as well. Like Aparna said, this is so relevant that we have mainstream publications and storytelling, which is not so triggering. Because in my case, when I was talking to survivors, we were publishing real stories, and it was very hard because sometimes it's also triggering, and not very many people can go through that, and we had to abridge them before we could publish them. But books like Anju's, I think, shed an excellent light on the stories. So thank you, Anju.
Thank you, Pooja. I think you and I, when we talked, you also mentioned a lot of the healing for the victims comes through their storytelling.
Yes, that's right.
Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
So definitely, this is not a substitute for therapy, but storytelling is a huge way of healing for survivors of trauma, for survivors of abuse. We are looking at storytelling as a way of sharing stories, sparking conversations, spreading awareness, and even for them to be able to share their stories, I think means a lot. Just like I, in some way, am sharing mine to all. Um, the fact that I, in doing that storytelling, I was able to hold their hand. We could connect. We didn't know each other, but the fact that we had that similar experience, I could hold them their hand, and I could, you know, take them through the journey. And the fact that they were vulnerable with me, the fact that they could share that journey was a lot. Um, it made a difference because later on I got messages and everything to say that it meant a lot for them to be opening up and sharing. Initially, it was very hard, but as we went along, it became easier.
Thank you, Pooja. So Kathy, if this helps answer some of the questions in terms of, the process and why it took me so many years, it's because I didn't know what I was dealing with. And my writing wasn't at the level that the story demanded. It wasn't. And as I began rewriting and rewriting, I began to see hidden gems in the dirt of the story and in the earth of the story that as I began to pull out and see, then I realized, oh, I'm addressing emotional abuse. Oh, this is physical abuse. Oh, this is mental health. Oh, this is trauma. This is now getting into PSD. And I didn't know much about any of these topics, but I had to start researching. I had to read. I had to work with psychologists as well and try and understand what am I dealing with. So for all of you, who think and believe that I was rewriting the same story again and again, I was, but it was at a different caliber each time. And I had to get my level of writing to what the story demanded. And I think when you're dealing with a topic as difficult as domestic violence and abuse, Aparna and Pooja, is there any way to describe how deep that level can be, or?
I think for Aparna does an amazing job, and I am only scratching the surface in my own way. But but the fact that I can be an ally for them, that means a lot. I may not be able to have the best resources to help, but I hope some people will pick up the magazine cover. We have a few cover stories. It was a series on domestic violence, and I made it a point to also include an information toolkit for anybody who would like to, use that resource for them. So I hope that helps.
So we have issues of cover where Pooja's story is the cover story. For anybody who's interested in reading it, we have copies here. I would say please take one home and read it. It is amazing the depth at which she's gone to and what she's written. And when I read it again with a highlighter the second time round because there's just so much information there. So Kathy, if that sheds light on anything of what I've been doing for 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Both of these women's passion is just inspiring to me. It makes me even want to work more in helping their projects and organizations. So check them out here in the Atlanta area. But do we want to bring up our other two authors? Okay. I want to bring up next Veena Rao, who is one of my authors of, and I'm going to read a little bit about her. Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking for her. Maybe it's not in my. Well, let me bring it. But this is my. I actually went to her house today, and I had the best day of my life. I'm going to tell you, I had the best
going to say that.
day of my life. No, I've got it right here. We've got some things to say. Her book, Purple Lotus, was also one of my book club selections. She is the founding editor of NRI Pulse, an Atlanta-based news publication. She has been recognized by the Linnea Book of Records as the first Indian woman to edit and publish a newspaper outside of India. Right here in Atlanta, you should be very proud. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Purple Lotus, her recently released novel, is a 2021 Georgia Author of the Year finalist, as is Anju Gattani is also been nominated for Georgia.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations to her. And that will be coming up. Actually, three or four of my authors are nominated. Yeah, Bobby was in Georgia. Were you a winner? She was a finalist. So I'm always picking winners. I'm so proud of them. She's an American Fiction Award winner and the award-winning finalist of the 2021 International Book Award. So Veena is devoted to advocating for victims of domestic and sexual abuse as a board member of Sorry's, it's not spelled right. Sorry's to Suits, which I learned about today. In fact, my art, I incorporate mixed media vintage sari pieces and beaded pieces. So I'm going to be donating a piece for auction at their fashion show coming up. September 30th. Yeah, it's an Atlanta-based nonprofit. She is also passionate about promoting South Asian literary voices in the U.S. through her news publication and is a program coordinator for the Tasveer South Asian Film and Literary Festival. You know, these are all wonderful accolades, but let me tell you about my experience at her house today and at Anju's. These are not only authors supporting other authors by bringing them in and to their world and promoting them. These are the most giving people I've ever seen in my life. I've never met an Indian, I swear, that hasn't been just always say, here, take this, take this. I am humbled by and I'm inspired to be a better person because of all of you here today. I really am. And I said, oh, I saw that book at Angie's house. It was
India Unveiled by Robert Arnett.
I said, there's one I don't have, Angie. And then I saw it again at her house. She gave me her autographed copy. And everybody that was there signed it. We had quite a few very interesting special guests. But the food was delicious at both places. I love India food. So if anybody wants to invite me to dinner, I'll be there. And we had a special guest. And, I want you to come up here in just a second, just to quickly introduce you, and then I'm going to let her talk. I had a special guest, and I want to tell you, this is funny. I met this woman on Facebook, and I sent her a message, and she hadn't responded to come because I knew she lived in Atlanta, but I didn't have any idea. So when I went to her house, Vina says, a special guest is here for you, and I've never met her. And in walks the door with presents, this wonderful woman. Tell them about yourself.
Thank you. Hello. Myself, Madhuri Jadhav. I'm Hindustani classical and semi-classical and Bollywood singer. And I'm a musician, composer as well, and I'm accomplished piano and keyboard player and harmonium player. And I was one of the finalists of the TV Saregama Indian reality show. And I'm singing from my age of 4. And I have performed everywhere in USA and all. And I have very big things. But I'm so fortunate to meet my very loving. What I can say, I don't have any word to express her. I can say my friend, my guide, my inspiration. I don't know. I have lots of things to say about her, but I like her so much. I love her so much. And I'm so happy and fortunate to meet her today. And another thing, Veena ji, yes, she is wonderful, amazing lady. You know her, right? They both are wonderful authors as well. I don't have any words to describe them, but I'm so fortunate due to her. I met this.
Well, and lady. Have her bring her in and to meet her. I love Atlanta. Invite me back anytime. I love it. I love the
Madhuri, thank you for singing for us.
Oh, listen.
Beautiful, soulful rendition of that song from Veer Zara.
Shah Rukh Khan, yeah, they started. And let me tell you, it's she sang today to me. I cried like a baby. So I taped it, and it's up on my Kathy L. Murphy. I don't know if it's my artist page or my other page, but I'm sharing it everywhere. I'm putting it on my Public Queen Shah Rukh Khan, Friends and Fan Club, as I put all my Indian things. But thank you, Veena. And I heard one thing from one of you about holding hands. And I don't want to forget this. I've always said in my book club, before we leave anything, that we all hold hands before we go, because nobody can have a harsh word to one another if you're holding hands. This is what I did to my children when they were little. I'd make them sit on the class and on the couch and hold hands, and they would just go, oh, and then the next thing they were laughing, and they go, okay, we get it. So we will hold hands. Thank you. And she brought her daughters who are dying to meet. I'll meet you later. But back to Veena. Thank you. Most beautiful song ever. And it always makes me cry when I watch that film. But Veena, tell us a little bit about the Purple Lotus and your journey. It's amazing.
Well, like Anju's book, Anju's book took 20 years. Mine took about 10 years of constantly writing and rewriting and getting rejection after rejection letters. And finally, I came up with this, I saw this manuscript contest on Twitter. I was just scrolling through this website, not the website, the Twitter account of She Writes Press, my publisher. And I came across this manuscript contest, and I just submitted the first few pages of my manuscript and forgot about it. And after a couple of months, I get this call from my publisher saying, you won the manuscript contest. And that's how my book got published. If not for my wonderful publisher, She Writes Press, probably my manuscript would have, still been in some slush pile, some agent's slush pile. So, yeah, that's how my book got published. And thankfully, it has resonated with readers. It's going strong. It went into reprint last year. It went into a second reprint this year, and it's still going strong. And I just found a publisher in India, so readers in India will also be able to read it at Indian prices. So that's exciting. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that because when I go to India, I'm going to buy that copy so I can have it in. It's going to be in just one language, or is
Yeah,
it?
just one language.
Just one language.
English. It's going to be in English. It's going to be pretty much the same book, except that I think the cover will change.
We need to get that connection for you over there.
Yeah. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of having diverse books here, since we are celebrating diversity. I think it's very, very important to have diverse books because diverse books help us learn about another culture that's different from ours. It helps us walk in somebody else's shoes. It also makes us more compassionate, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Of people who are different from us. And it also helps us, accept and even celebrate our differences.
I don't see that. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I don't see the differences. A good story is a good story. I don't care what color, culture, gender, what your background is or anything. I just look at the story. But I do know that I'm weird, okay? Because not everybody thinks the same way I do. And I think it's up to me to be that bridge and to have all your stories be even bigger bridges to build a world where instead of us, we judging by what one person does from a country in another country, that's not the entire people. If you haven't seen My Name is Khan, starring Shah Rukh Khan, everybody should watch that. I watch it every 9/11. It came out in 2010. It was up for the Academy Award. It's an amazing story. So you're absolutely right. And any ideas on how we can do that besides your newspaper? What are some things?
Fortunately, I think it's the gatekeepers of the publishing industry who control books, right? I think American readers, by general, are very curious about other cultures, but the gatekeepers of the publishing industry don't seem to think so. But fortunately for us, I think that's changing. That's changing since 2020.
Yeah.
And a lot more diverse books are being published. And that's a great thing. And this is when we, I think, are there any upcoming authors here, writers? I think this is the time when you
Yes.
go ahead and make your mark.
How's your book coming here? How's it going? I want to hear about it when you get it done.
I know I'm working on a fiction and a non-fiction book. So I don't know how long it will be. I hope it's not as long as 20 years.
Take your time and do it
How
right.
long?
Why did
you just hit it every once in a while.
Writing it or have you been writing it for a while?
Keeps going off. The fiction book has been in my mind for a long time.
I don't know how to keep it on if I'm not sitting.
Is it on the charger?
Non-fiction
No.
book, yeah, it's a part. I think
There's no plugs.
what work I've done.
I'll try to.
Thank you.
That I think there was a lot that I wanted to share, which obviously you cannot condense in the article. So I'm hoping that would continue. And I'm working on some of the other.
Well, this is the time to, get it written.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And get it to me. Go to my website. I've got cards everywhere, or Anju or Vina or any of the authors.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to hear your story. What other important thing that you would like to share with this community of all the people that have come? And really, on a Thursday night, thank you.
Yeah, well, my book is also about domestic violence. It's about a woman who moves from India, a small town in southern India. She moves to Atlanta, so it's a southern book. Set predominantly in the south, so it's a southern book. And I go on panels and I argue that it is a southern book because it's set predominantly in the south. So what was I saying?
Well, we were talking about the diversity and why it is so important that we come up with ways of a better way stories. And to me, the best thing you can do is when you read a story that really touches you, you review it, and talk about it with your book clubs and your fellows, and share the books and the readers, stories, because the more you share, the more you care. And unfortunately, they won't let me on Amazon or the online booksellers post reviews anymore because they think the authors pay me to pick them. No, they don't. I pick the books on merit only. And I'm very proud of all the books that I picked. And I'm very proud of your book and Angie's book and Bobby's book and everybody in your upcoming book. This is a world of where reading opens windows to new opportunities too for everybody. So we just need to make people aware and talk, have the conversation. Join our book club. It's free for readers. I do charge authors because I help advertise them. So it's not much. Just go to the website. Cards are all around the room. So anything else you would like to say before we go on to?
Well, I just want to say a little bit more about the importance of having diversity. And I was just thinking, Anju, that the yearning to belong to the literary landscape, it's also true of us immigrant authors, We immigrant, or not just immigrant authors, it's also authors who are outside the mainstream.
Right.
Even though some of the greatest writers in history, American writers in history, have been not necessarily mainstream authors, like Alice Walker, The Color Purple, yeah. She's from Georgia, or Maya Angelou, she's one of the greatest poets, or Audre Lorde, who's also from Atlanta, I think. So, despite this, I think being an outsider, and by outsider, I don't mean just us immigrants, I also mean people who are outside the mainstream, like marginalized communities. I think being a writer from a marginalized or immigrant community allows you to see the country through a whole new, different perspective, and which in turn enriches literature. So it's so important for us to have diverse books.
And it's just like she said. She said when you do the storytelling and you write your story, I call it, it's kind of like, the poor man's psychiatry couch. You write it down and you figure it out, and then people start asking you questions. You go, oh, yeah. You learn about yourself. I never knew who I was until I wrote my memoir up there. And when I finished it, a boulder rolled off my back because I carried a lot of guilt and pain of growing up in a very dysfunctional home. It was to be kept secret, and nobody knew. And my best friends didn't even know. And even my own sisters and I have different stories of the experience. Everybody has their own story. So it's like I've always said, if you don't write your story down, it's a library lost to your family and friends, and other person might not get it right. They don't. Oftentimes, we're seeing that a lot. So yes, so keep writing.
Thank you. I'm working on my next novel. It's also set in small town Georgia, rural Georgia, and it also has a protagonist from India. So,
well, you write what you know. I mean, I'm sorry,
exactly.
You write what you know, and I think it's amazing that I grew up in Kansas in a small town that pretty much we're all the same color, but we still have prejudice. We had the town kids against country kids. And I just used to get so mad about it because they would treat the kids that were bussed in from, out of the city, not the same. And, I stood up for them a lot of times. And now we look back at it and we go, how stupid. I still meet up every class reunion with all the same kids I went to kindergarten with. And now it's totally different. So times are changing and we all embrace everybody. And so keep writing. Yeah, I'm ready for Bobby. Okay, Bobby. Thank you, Vina.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
Best day of my life. I swear, I cried like a baby. I had so much fun.
It was such a pleasure to host you and Joanne.
I want to come back here a lot.
Thank you.
Okay. Bobby,
Yes, ma'am.
jump up here. Bobby and I go back quite a ways, and the coolest thing about Bobby is we've done a lot of things. She's come to my annual book club convention, which is not like any you've ever been to. All my authors come, and we hang out with New York Times bestselling authors all weekend, like a slumber party, and we dress up in costumes and we have fun. And Bobby, she's like me. She's the queen of bling, and she's got quite a story. And your mom's still in Dallas. And she's got an adorable dog, I stayed at her home. And she went with me when the Pulpwood Queens on the Literature of New York. And that's when I found out she had a background in art. And we had another one of our authors who was an artist, Pat Conroy's daughter, Melissa Conroy, gave us a guided tour through the Met. Another one of my best days of my life. But Bobby, I want you to tell them about your books. How did we first meet? I'm just trying. I have so many authors I met. It's hard for me to remember.
We met because my first book, Shelter from the Texas Heat, is set in Dallas and Austin.
That's right.
And I heard about you, this fantastic book guru in Texas, and another author suggested that I contact you. And you were so kind to select this book. And there's an interesting connection. But first, I want to thank Anju and Kat and Tina for being here. But there's an obvious connection, which could be with my Hollywood book, Red Carpet Rivals, from Hollywood and Bollywood. But there is also a connection in this book, Shelter, of spousal abuse, racial and religious prejudice and spousal abuse. And it's funny because there's Texans in it.
Well,
And
we're kind of different.
well, not that part's funny, but the characters lead real lives, and I have a Jewish main character and a non-Jewish best friend as girls who grew up in Dallas when Kennedy was assassinated. So this trauma stayed with my main character, Rachel Frank, and I like to think that all violence is private. So that was public, being our president who died, but war is even personal. So that was something that sat on my heart for decades. And then when I went to an adult writers program in Atlanta, Callenwald, I wrote short stories. And my first chapter was an award-winning short story about these two girls who were friends. And then the teacher said, develop it into a novel. And it became Shelter from the Texas Heat. And they had full lives, both PJ and Rachel Frank. And Kennedy runs through it. So, and again, I'll just say again with the abuse can be sexual harassment. And I've got a lot of fun, glamorous situations in Red Carpet Rivals, but I think I was probably the first book that was published with the Me Too hashtag Me Too. It came out right after the biggest scandal. And so it has all kinds of improper behavior in the studios and on the sets, surprising people who do this. It's about relationships, but again, there's a thread of women's empowerment and dealing with this scourge on many industries, not just entertainment, how mainly women are mistreated in the workplace and undervalued.
And the interesting thing about Bobby is that her background, tell about first of all, your writing first, and then what happened when you got married.
Well, I had the marriage of my dreams. My dream leading man was my late husband, Cy Kornblit, who was an executive at one of the major studios in Hollywood. So he did the work and I had the fun. So in my Hollywood book, I often attended the Academy Awards and many other award ceremonies. And the main characters in my book, an estranged couple, Coop and Serena, are up for the main acting awards, or it's called the Constellation Award, the Connie. This time it's a female woman reaching for the stars, where Oscar is a man, is a knight with a sword. And so they're at odds. They are the main rivals, and other people. I have a female studio executive, Charlie, and a publicist, Francine, is a nemesis in this. And what happens is, when I wanted to write about Hollywood, I did see the inside, and I enjoyed it all. But I wanted to show readers a side of it they might not have known. So you might have seen Cannes Festival. It's not Cannes, it's Cannes. And, with different actresses or actors dancing in a fountain. Well, I picked the Deauville Film Festival in northern France, So that also allowed me for poignant settings at the American Cemetery when Coop runs off with some paramour, and they're faced with the myriad of tombstones there, and it brings them down to life and grounds their relationship. I also wanted to show the marketing of movies. So it was fun. I created campaigns, I created movie titles, key art, the main art, and the battles that go on getting a movie marketed, the budgets. Of course, it's got to be about relationships. But I feel like when I'm writing, it's important to get the meat of the story right. If you're writing a medical piece, I'm sure doctors read it a certain way. It might not hurt the plot at all if you have someone taking out some organ that's not quite right. But I did work very hard to show how this happens. And I'm very pleased on Red Carpet Rivals, the men and women read the book. And I get a lot of feedback in book clubs and reviews from both men and women. And Shelter from the Texas Heat won best fiction, women's fiction, and also won a multicultural award because I have people of different colors and nationalities and languages coming together like the real world and having difficulties and overcoming challenges and finding meaningful relationships. So both books, I hope, are exciting settings. And in Shelter, you get UT Austin in the day when Willie was running around, but you also get the modern day when her mother looks back at her days at college when her girl is getting ready to go to college. So I tried to put those settings that might interest people. They might not know about these aspects of both places.
Yeah, and everybody who buys these books, if they buy Anju's books first, you get these books for $10 a piece.
Discounted.
Which is amazing. It's really amazing.
I respect Anju. I thank you for inviting me. And I hope everyone, I probably will buy your book. I bought it and read it and loved it. So again, to support your book, these are discounted for today.
Yes. And we have just a bunch of authors here, and they'll all be able to sign the book soon. But now we're going to open it up. I want everybody to come up here. Anju, Vina, you all come up here, and we're going to open it up for question and answer. This is the important thing about the Pulpit Queens International Book Club is that we want to have a conversation where people from, whether they're from Eureka, Kansas, where I grew up, or Atlanta, Georgia, have access to me, some of the best authors in the country. And the only way you can really understand an author and get to know them is talk to them. So we'd love to have your comments. We'd love to have your questions. And I'm going to turn over the mics to them and let you go. Here you go. You pass it down. Yeah. Anybody have a question? Yes.
So I've noticed that the trend seems to be domestic violence issues, and I guess those are heavy in the culture. So, I think you said that one generation of loving parents can change an entire scope of a person's life. And I thought, so when you're raising boys in that culture, but it's not only just boys, men that create abuse, it can be women as well. But when you're raising boys, how do you mentally do that? What encourages you in that when you raise your sons? And I know you have sons too.
So I actually have a son, and most of what I talk about has first-hand experience too for me, and I don't think I could have raised him any differently because the compassion that I felt, mostly because initially I felt very guilty that once I realized that, I was the one who had put him in that situation. The guilt took a long time. And then there was only compassion for him and the fact that I had to, help him. So I think love makes a lot of things easy as long as you have that one thing right, as long as you're giving. And he went through a host of, issues that we dealt with. But the idea that, and in his heart, I knew that there was a compassionate person. He was very small when he told me that I need to leave. So in his mind, in his heart, he was very clear that this is not what life is made of. And I think that he has held on to that, and I've held on to him. And and the fact in even with and I'm just saying that as a first-hand experience, but even with other mothers that I spoke with, they were very protective of all their children, girls as well as boys. I recently spoke to a man, he's 50, he's a physician. He went through domestic abuse as a child. He saw and he also went through it himself. He did not have, it took him all this time to unravel the trauma that he went through as a kid. He didn't realize it until now when he's in 50s and he's now talking about it. I'm in a storytelling session with him. The fact that he has come to that self-awareness now, he has been able to raise his two girls very well. They are, I spoke with them also because one of my part of my work was also to see the intergenerational cycle of abuse, how it perpetuates. And I did not, and they did not have any trauma to share as far as the home situation went. So the fact that he took that step to be self-aware, to not let what he went through as a reference for what is the right behavior, that made him a compassionate person, compassionate father. There is of course the flip side. A lot of us who grow with that have that reference that this is the right behavior. This is how we should be brought up, or how children should be taught a lesson, or how they should be treated, and even in their other relationships. But you have that choice, I think, and that's the biggest thing that one has learned in this time, is to be aware and is to take that opportunity to make a change when you can. And I think if you have love in your heart, I think a lot of things become very, very easy.
I know that myself, when I was about 9, I guess, my mother left an abusive relationship. And she was 8 months pregnant with her 4th child.
Oh my.
Now we were not. I'm a child of another gentleman, and my 3 brothers are this gentleman I'm speaking of. And so she left and moved to Arizona, and I think to myself, she had my brother, and her mother came from California to come, and she gave her baby to her mother so that she could take him for a month so she could go back to work. And she always worked 2 jobs. So as the oldest of 5, I saw that there was a lot of strength, and I mean, because it must have been frightening for her to leave. And she's an immigrant as well from Cuba, and came here and brought everybody in. So, you do. I think as a woman, then you understand, that you don't have to live that life. And that you don't have to live in a bad relationships.
Actually, no, it's not that easy. Being in that, because when you are in that situation, things can become very blurry. And the abuse cycle, talks about the honeymoon phase back to you're living a good life, suddenly things go back. Suddenly they're never at the situation where they're abusive all the time. And they're never at the stage where they're at the honeymoon stage. So you're always hoping for that honeymoon phase. You're always trying to validate, the other person. You're always trying to bring it back to that status quo where, you're longing for that honeymoon phase. Because when that happens, it's like a love bomb, and then we're back again. So after a point, your reference is all skewed. You no longer have, a sense of what is right.
I
you
guess
know,
as a daughter, I'm saying, speaking as a daughter, that I
Yes.
saw her straight make that decision
yeah,
to leave. And of course, she didn't make wise decisions from that point on as far as men, but she, but it gave me a reference point.
yes,
And it gave me a desire for something good and solid and in that sense. And I'm probably the only one in my family that is married and married well, and been able to do that. Now, I have a dear friend. She was my doctor as a child, but she had an arranged marriage, and so now she never said anything negatively other than that she. I don't know that she loves him to the extent that if it hadn't been arranged. But so, how many of you had arranged marriages that you? I mean, is that something that the modern woman? I mean, because I look at you and you guys are all very young and modern and stuff. So, I mean, is that still a thing? So, I mean,
oddly, I had a love marriage, so I don't know if that says anything. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll let the others speak.
I obviously had a love marriage.
yeah,
Mine was arranged.
it was okay.
I grew up here and I have a love
Okay.
marriage.
Yeah, I mean, just culturally, I know, and does that, because you hope that your parents will choose for you, I guess, wisely,
But yeah, and you can have the gamut of a good or bad marriage, regardless whether it's arranged or whether it is a love marriage. So I think it's the luck of the draw who you marry, the trauma that person brings into the relationship. I think there's, for some people it might be easy to leave, for some it's deadly. So I'm going to hold the real life statistic of that there are people who do try to leave and it's very dangerous for them, and the consequences. We talk about domestic, fatalities, and in October we've named the names of people who did not make it because when they were leaving, that's when their abuser did, take the ultimate act of power. So each person's situation is different, and each survivor has different support systems. And the other thing I'm going to say is that gets very complicated is immigration status, right? And when your mom was growing up, the reality would be very different than what women are dealing with now.
That was not an issue for her, but you're absolutely right. And I used to work at a school, an elementary school, and I was the registrar there. So I met a woman who left an abusive situation because the boy was always, he missed Mondays because the weekends were bad.
Yeah.
And she tried to leave. She was from Romania. And I asked her, can you go home? And she said no. And she didn't have a car, she couldn't work.
Right.
And of course, she went back.
And our current system is like, I can say for the South Asian community, you have a lot of folks who are what's called H-4 visas, or they're on dependent visas. So they don't have permission to work. So the options to leave and support yourself, you have to go through immigration, or you have to get a police officer or court to sign something called a U visa, depending on your situation. It takes 5 to 7 years before you can even get immigration relief. So I think there's complexities that are even more apparent now than there were at other times, where you could leave and just get a job and you weren't worried about your immigration status, or that a divorce could impact your immigration status and you could be deported. So there's those sad realities that, we bring to play. And there's a lot that we've done and advocated to create some temporary fixes, but they're not permanent fixes.
Well, on the fiction side, and Shelter from the Texas Heat, my girl Rachel is looking for peace and a loving relationship and hoping to find a husband, because she carries that dirty secret of having grown up with spousal abuse, parental spousal abuse. So my challenge was to make her endearing, because she goes through a lot to come out of whatever her trauma is. And her husband has a pretty tough role there to meet expectations. If she thinks he's faltering, she could be rough on him. So it's the dance between the husband and the wife, the grown Rachel looking at the girl Rachel, and again enjoying joyous moments, but then colored by the childhood trauma, as was very interesting, that was highlighted today, and that's very much in my book. And I say even the level of Kennedy traumatizing her. And I will say one interesting thing, that when my book was in full swing, it was the 50th anniversary of the assassination. Mm-hmm. And I spoke in the Dallas Public Library, the library where I grew up. And so it was just coming full circle. It was very meaningful.
but these issues that are the secrets of certain cultures that are not believed to drink, have alcoholism or abuse, people can cover it very, very nicely.
So I'll just add to that, and I'll say irrespective of which culture you come from, whichever country you're living in, or whatever background you have, no victim knows they are being abused. Point blank, period. You do not know it's happening to you. You do not even know when it began, and you don't even know what it is. But it's a chipping away of your interior, the inside of your soul. And when I was writing Dynasties here, I didn't know why abuse came up. Why did emotional abuse come up in the story? It really made me think, and a lot of research. And I read a lot of tool books on how to empower yourself, how to do this, how to do that. And then I read all these fiction books as well on domestic violence and abuse. And I was like, wait a minute. If you don't even know you're being abused in the first place, how do you know what route to take to find a remedy? It's happening to you. By the time you realize it, you're brainwashed or you've lost your sanity. If you're not able to think and you're continually living in self-doubt, and then you cannot even rationalize who and what you are, you don't even know you need help. You know nothing. And that is the true dark reality of emotional abuse. It kills you on the inside while you're just a corpse on the outside. And so when I began to see Dynasties, I began to see, well, here's a way for people to go through the entire cycle of abuse I gave her everything. I gave her protagonist everything. I gave her wealth. I gave her beauty. I gave her prestige. I gave her status. I gave her everything a woman would want. And then I said, now you have everything that a woman wants. Now what's going to happen if you are empty on the inside? Do you even know you're being drained? It's like siphoning blood away from you while you're alive. And then after that, once the realization kicks in and you realize you're being abused, what are you going to do next? What's the next step for you? So that's why what started off as a story became a series, because it's a series of domestic chipping away, and professionally also. The professional side kicks in, the domestic side kicks in. And the problem is, as a woman, you're not just a one-woman show for yourself. You've got threads you're holding on as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, as a daughter, and as, you're basically the pillar. When do you let go? And that's what the Winds of Fire series, it tests and pushes the protagonist Sheetal to the point where it says, how much is enough? And when does the breaking point hit? And as Pooja was saying, it's when the children get involved. And that's when you realize that if you don't stand up for your child, who is going to stand up for your child? Because you've given up yourself. You never realized it was happening to you, and now you're in this state. Now it's happening to your child. So by staying in this relationship, are you doing your child a service or a disservice by keeping that family thread intact? It was a very, very hard topic, and it continues to be a very hard topic because I'm now researched on PTSD. And I had to read this book called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. It is even harder a book to read than 101 verbal abusers speak out, because now you're looking at children who were raised in such traumatic conditions that's why they end up in juvenile courts, if not in courts for having manslaughtered victim after victim after victim. And nobody is born evil. Nobody is born evil in this world. That's what I learned when I was, fleshing out my characters. But it's not even a nurture or nature debate anymore. It's the experiences that shape you as a person, who make you are what you are. And then, as Pooja said, you need a cycle of two good parents to break that. You need that reinforcement continually, every day on an ongoing basis. And I've read that book, The Boy Who Raises the Dog, but I do not have the guts to buy it because it is such a heart-wrenching book to read. When you read about a boy who is 2 or 3 years old and who was made to live in a kennel day in and day out. And I read that entire account, and then I read for myself, what is the cycle of PTSD? What happens after? And then when you see the aftermath in his 20s and 30s, you understand why that happened. Can you erase that? No. Can therapy help you? Yes, but do you know you need therapy?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that there's always a spectrum of what happens. You know, you can still have loving parents and still be abusive, right? And I also think that children can be very super sensitive, or they can be extremely violent, having watched violence in their homes. So I just think that we have a whole spectrum, and it's hard to have those simple answers, because it's not so simple. It is quite complex. And knowing, I think you were going back to how do we raise our kids, and being aware of our power, being aware of our privilege, and how we use it on a day-to-day basis, how we show up and how we respect folks. Those are important things to keep in mind that we're teaching the children in our lives, of how to show respect, how to honor, and not to take things for granted, because you can grow up in a loving household that's so loving that you feel like you can do no wrong, right? And that's some of the gender-based stuff that occurs in a lot of communities where, boys can do no wrong and the girls see a very different light. And that goes into how do we change the culture. I was very lucky to have a father that saw possibilities, but my father also grew up with violence, right? So if you slammed a door as an adult, you would see the triggering that he would experience and his reactions, because he grew up with a father with a temper. Now, and there's the complexities, right? You can have good people with good intentions who love their children, but who just grew up with something different and modeled what they grew up with. So it's a lot more complex. And not so easy for each person. Each person has a different path and a different journey and and each child is going to have a different experience. All we can do is provide things that keep them resilient, whether that's activities or, positive self-esteem, opportunities for them to feel good about themselves, honest communication, being able to talk about feelings. All those things are so important in changing our culture, right? There's a lot to change in our culture. I know, Vina, you haven't had a chance to say much, so I just wanted to.
Well, my book is also about abuse. It's about a woman who moves from India to Atlanta, and she's trapped in this abusive marriage. And like Aparna said, she's tied to her husband because she cannot work. She's financially dependent on him. And until she gets her green card, she's kind of imprisoned, completely isolated, emotionally abused initially, and then you see it escalate to the point where she's pushed out of the house and all of that. And my point of bringing this up is because we need to talk about the sense of shame that the victim goes through.
Mm-hmm.
The victim is convinced that something is wrong with her, and there's also a culture of shame, and I don't think it's just in South Asian cultures; it's universal. So you don't want to talk about it. You hide what happens behind the closed doors. So I think we need to create safe spaces where women can be, or any victim can be encouraged to speak out and not feel guilty about it.
And not be alienated from their own community. I think
Yes.
that's the big thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things I remember one child saying is how they weren't invited to like the Eid parties or the, cultural parties and the social events. So children like experiencing that. And so that's one thing we were just like, oh, should we have our own little celebration so folks can come together to where that, because they don't get invited to the larger parties. And so thinking about how do we as community members continue to create open spaces when we have our friends who've gone through a divorce or domestic violence, how do we continue to invite them to our parties so they don't feel like they've lost community, because that's one of the biggest things. I'm sorry.
I like to say when I was researching women's shelter from the Texas heat, I went to the family place in Dallas, Texas. It was a remarkable place. And what I learned was that women with boys could not stay at the shelter because they didn't have the proper rooms to separate them. So they needed individual rooms where the women with boys could go. And then what was very sad is I saw young women on walkers and young women with casts, healing from their physical wounds. And it was a very nurturing place. And my book also contains
a garden, which I was inspired by the Gardens of Peace that are around Atlanta. They're in the History Center and Agnes Scott. So I have a character who creates a beautiful physical environment with plants. And so it's again mixing reality and fiction and kind of making this stew of what's real and what isn't, and trying to get to those places of empowerment and healing. So that was my goal.
Do we have any other questions before we do the book 2 cover reveal, which Kathy will spearhead?
I don't want folks to feel like they can't go to shelters. They have boys. There's been a lot of changes since that, so there's been adaptations.
I can't go
Yeah.
about it and do this.
Yeah, and it's changed over the years because there's been a lot of advocacy because we know a lot of women won't go. Yeah.
I've got to introduce
So
this
I
thing out.
In
I
the
can't do it,
pets, I
so
think
have her
we now
sign
have
it.
shelters where they have special arrangement for pets, so anybody who
Yeah.
has pets and, they are looking to leave, and sometimes pets become an important part of, the abuse cycle, the way somebody wants to keep somebody chained just because of the pet. So they have adoption.
Yeah, there's a great program called the HIMSA House that helps. A HIMSA House that actually helps. Doesn't matter what pet you have. You could have a cobra. I don't know, like a snake. Whatever your pet is, they help find shelter and safety. And one of our, we do a lot of. We've worked with them, and they've helped some survivors we work with. So yeah, things are changing. There's been a lot of
She
advocacy.
gave me.
So
I want her to
know
sign my
there's a
box
lot of
and
people
give her the
going to
book.
shelter,
Give
but
her the book.
shelters
I'll be
have
right
been
there.
changing. Some have places for pets and kennels for pets and stuff like that.
Good update, thank you.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Are we, okay, one thing before we do the book reveal, I have 2 little girls who are dying to meet me, you guys, and they're leaving. So I want you to come up here and I want to meet you. And they have something they want to give me and I'm really excited about. Let me make a path so you can get through. Because they're having to leave and they've been sitting through very patiently. Come up here, girls. I'm going to put you on Zoom. Let me turn this a minute. So I want you to see. Come up here. You're going to be, everybody's watching. Now tell everybody your names.
Shrima,
Uh-huh.
and I'm Shreya.
Yes. And what, I'm really excited to meet you and I have something I'm going to ask of you, but what have you got? Oh my gosh. They've written me a book. And it says Kathy L. Murphy by Srimai Javed. And then here's the introduction, but this is pages, you all. I will do a Zoom on this personally when I get home, but it says new books coming out soon.
She wants to become like your author, like you.
Well, we want to make her a Pulpwood Queen Princess, don't you think? Both of the girls, because it's important that we read to our children and encourage them early. I have been a Girl Scout leader all of my adult life. I was a Girl Scout. I've been a youth group leader at all the churches I've ever been at. I work with kids all the time. So yes, we got to get this Pulpwood Queen Princess thing going here in Atlanta. And I'm so happy. But your mother is a wonderful singer. And I'm so proud of her. But I understand she's teaching you now to sing too. Could you possibly stand right over here in front of this camera with this mic, girls, and sing me a song? Come on. You pick the song, hold the mic, and hold it up, and I want you to sing for the audience. Come on, you can do it.
Can we say like 2 lines?
You can sing anything you want, honey. Yeah, comfortable.
With consent, if you feel good.
You're short, so you should hold it. Okay.
So we're gonna sing a song by Grace Vanderbilt. She's like one of my favorite singers. I'm just gonna start from the middle because I don't remember the lyrics.
Okay, girls.
Let's take the city and make it our song. Let's take the city and make it our song. Everything going on around you.
Yay! Okay, one of these days I'm gonna have you come and perform at a girlfriend weekend, but can I get a picture with these girls so I can put it up on my Facebook page with their fantastic book? Do you care if I add some color and art to this? Oh, you have another book? Yeah, is it?
She did that by her own. I didn't do that when she
Oh, fantastic.
when she was writing something.
Okay, girls, it's a pleasure to meet you. I love your family. It's amazing. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you, girls. And for all of my special guests here with Anju and supporting her and everything, I have a special gift. Jay Shetty is a podcaster who was a former monk from India. And a couple of years ago at my girlfriend weekend, I invited him to come and through his publicist, and she said, well, he charges 6 figures, is that something you could spend, work? No. So I said, well, perhaps he could do a video that we could show at our annual convention. She goes, well, he has this podcast and he's on a national tour. I said, oh, well, you think we could get a book? And she goes, let me call you back. So it was an hour later, she called me back and she goes, there's 300 copies of Think Like a Monk coming to you to give to everybody coming to your convention. So this year, when I got home from my convention, which was in Amelia Island, Florida, which you all should come to this, it's going to be in Texas next year. I got a notice from HarperCollins, I think, or maybe Science Schuster. I'll check, it's on the book. But they said, you've got 2 boxes of books. And I didn't order anything. And Jay sent me his new book, 8 Rules of Love. So anybody who buys any of our authors' books, especially Anju's today, I have copies that I will each, if you'll bring me your receipt, I will give you a book. And if I don't have it here, give me your address and I'll send you one from home because I only brought so many. But I wanted this family to have 8 Rules of Love because I love you. Thank you so much. I'm proud to meet you. Your whole family. Is this Dad? Hi, I haven't met you yet. We'll meet, but you guys gotta go. Thank you for the wonderful dish we had today and the wonderful presents. And did you sign my box? Yay! She gave me this box and I had her autograph it. It's going in my home of treasures. So girls, come to Texas, come visit me. Bring the family. Thank you. Okay, we have something very special. How are we where is it's right here. Can we have you guys step away for just a second? I'm actually going to turn the camera away from this because the reveal will be actually done in person when she actually launches it. But right now, this is going to be for only the people that are here are being able to see the launch of Anju Gattani's second book in her series, Winds of Fire series. So are you ready? Oh, I'm going to reveal it. Well, you talk about it while I do it. Okay.
So yeah, Kathy's revealing the second book cover. And here you go.
Oh. Here we go. What do you think?
So that is the 2 once and for all. And it continues where Dynasties leaves us with a very, very traumatic situation. And now we're looking 8 years after the relationship and what happens, Pooja, Aparna, when the relationship of toxicity continues. What happens then?
I could not.
And Kathy has read the book.
I've read the book, and when I started, I was going, oh my gosh. But let me tell you, as much as I loved her first book, which was the highest mark I give, 5 diamonds in the Purple Queen Tiara, this one gets 10. That's how much I cannot wait for book 3, 4, 5, and on. But this book, when I got to the last 75% through, I'm sitting on the edge of my couch, reading as fast as my eyes will go. And when I got to the ending, I went, what? she has set it up for a third book. You guys, this is going to be amazing. And it's going to be launching January of 2024. It is an official international 2024 pick. So you all got to see it. Thank you for coming. And please get your book and bring me a receipt. And I'll give you one of the Jay Shetty's books. He wrote Think Like a Monk and 8 Rules of Love, and I read that one night. It's fantastic. Thank you, Anju Gattani and Tina. Tina, where are you? Thank you for providing this public forum for a very important and serious, but also highly entertaining series of books. I can't thank you enough. I had a bookstore myself for 13 years and surviving COVID. Everybody give this bookstore owner applause. It's amazing what she's done. And keep the applause going for Anju and everybody, Vina and Bobby and every one of you, your wonderful organizations. What a wonderful night. Best couple of days I've had since COVID. So
I just want to quickly say thank you to Tina and Anne for hosting this little book event, for giving Voices of Diversity a chance to speak up, and for everyone coming and supporting me here. Pooja, Aparna, Veena, and Bobby. And to Kathy, to coming all the way from Texas, and the 2-day journey just to get here and to be a part of this. It means a lot, especially after 17 years of being told no.
I say yes. I say yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. When are we going to do the drawing? Now, okay, if you have purchased a book and filled out a newsletter, have we got the names? You're going to find out who's going to win the swag, and I'm going to end my Zoom right now. Hi, everybody. I'm ending the Zoom. You'll hear more and see more pictures from the event on the Pulpwood Queen channel and on my Kathy L. Murphy Facebook page. Thank you for joining me at Johns Creek Books and Gifts in Atlanta, Georgia. And everybody wave goodbye. Bye, everybody from Atlanta, Georgia. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Bye, everybody. We'll see you soon with lots to report. Bye-bye.